Hello and welcome back. All right, Nelson. So what are we gonna do now? We're gonna consume this, right?
Yes, we are going to consume this tree. So before we consume the tree, I'm going to go ahead and change the signature of our method. It's going to return a common tree. And what it's going to actually return inside of the method is going to be file.tree, and we're going to cast it into a common tree. Now, the way that Antler was sort of designed with these trees, it is kind of weird and maybe a little bit awkward, but you'll notice that the tree property is actually a type object. You can change the type that Antler uses for your trees. In fact, that's an option up here. Now, the common tree is enough. We don't need anything more advanced than that. But you can create your own custom tree implementations and have Antler generate those instead. But in this case, because we're using common trees, we can go ahead and say, invoke our file rule, grab the tree out of it, cast it into a common tree, and return it. So that means our value right here is no longer a value, really. It's a tree, down to line 25. But we need to pass our tree into something. We need to pass our tree into something that understands how to take that tree and convert it into the actions that we had written before. We do so with what's called a tree grammar. So let me go ahead and create one. I'm going to call this basic JSON tree, and I'm going to nuke everything inside of it. Then I'm going to actually write code into it. The basic code that we need is going to simply be tree grammar basic JSON tree. Now, this notifies Antler that this is a tree grammar, and it also says that it's misspelled. There we go. It also says that the name is basic tree grammar. Now, this is important. This name needs to be the same name as the file. We're going to open up our options, and we're going to pass in two options. We're going to say AST label type equals common tree, because that's going to be the kind of tree that our basic JSON tree grammar is going to understand. For one reason or the other, Antler does not default to common trees when working with tree grammars. Now, we could change the type here, but we don't have to because it's defaulted to common tree for some reason, but it's not here. I don't know why. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and specify it manually right there. The next thing we need to do is very important. Very, very important. And it has to do with these guys. This tokens file is how different disparate grammar files can communicate with each other. This token file is how our tree grammar is going to be able to understand the tokens that are generated by our JSON parser and lixer. See, basically, all token is it's a name associated with a number. And so we need to have the same associations between name and numbers when working with our tree grammar, but it's in a different file. So we need to find a way to inform our basic JSON tree grammar about the basic JSON tokens. And we do that with this. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we are going to make a file rule that does nothing. Okay, I'm going to go into our application. I'm going to hit the R key, which is going to reload all of the .g files in. So it just found our basic JSON tree. I'm going to hit space and save and actually compile out our basic JSON tree, which you see is now compiled. If we go into our generated folder and show all files in our Solution Explorer, you'll see we now have this basic JSON tree file. So if I go ahead and right-click on this, I can include in project. And now it's in our project.
Nice.
So you see int array equals 5, array equals 5. So you see it picked up that grammar just fine, or that token vocab just fine. So now let's go ahead and talk about how we would consume it. Again, we're not actually doing anything yet with this grammar, but we have it compiling, and we can actually we can use it at this point. We can go ahead and say, inside of our program.cs, we can go ahead and instantiate it. We can say var tree parser equals new basic JSON tree, which is that type that just got generated for us. And then we're going to pass in a new common tree node stream. And then we're going to pass in the tree that we created from our parser. So finally, we need to actually tell our tree parser to do something. And to do that, we need to add a method to this class. The way we add a method to the class is simply making another partial part for it. Let's just call this run. Let's return null for now. So now we can say var value equals tree parser dot run. Tree parser dot run. Tree parser dot run. Sorry, I had a little typo there. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and change that. Okay, so now we have compiling code. And we have all the actors in play. Now, our tree parser doesn't do anything yet, but we do have it wired up into our program. So just to reiterate over this process, we start with our string input, which is just the JSON we want to parse out. We instantiate our lexer and pass in our input. Then we instantiate our parser and pass in our lexer. Then we tell our parser to create a tree for us. Then we instantiate our tree parser and pass in the tree that was created for us. Then we tell the tree parser to go ahead and run. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.